Day 1090 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 859,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,530 losses in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 16 tanks, 52 APVs, 37 artillery, and 1 oil refinery. And so we start out in the map where a concentration of Ukrainian UAV flights, reported to be about 90 in number, plus 1 Neptune missile that had overwhelmingly targeted the Krasnodar territory overnight, striking the Ilsky oil refinery, igniting a fierce blaze, and was an event that appeared to seamlessly flow on or follow on from the end of the final day of the Munich Security Conference. Now, this marks the third attack on the refinery and is a site that crucially produces 6.5 million tons of refined fuels annually. Local authorities claimed only minor damage, even though the site was clearly ablaze. So it really continues to appear that the announcements from the local governments that play down these events are designed for an audience of one, Putin, who it appears really doesn't have a true grasp on the reality of the situation that his country faces. Also in the Krasnodar region, drones attacked the Kropotkinskaya oil pumping station. This is the largest oil pumping station of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium in Kuban. And after the attack, the station ceased operations. No visuals at time of recording, but the source of this report does in fact come from Russia itself through interfax.ru. Meanwhile, on the map, the further south of Russia, which had come under attack overnight, with social media reports specifying an air raid alert that affected multiple cities, including Galenzik, Tuapse, and Novorossiysk. Then headed across on the map and still within Russia, as in a stunning display of poor planning, Russia's 155th Brigade launched a frontal assault in the Kursk region, proudly waving red flags of victory at Nikolskoye. But the celebration quickly turned to chaos. Ukrainian drones met the column head-on, targeting the mined road, and essentially what happened here was plans for a two-wave attack fell apart, because instead of a tactical pause, a full day had passed, allowing Ukrainian forces to regroup. Then, in broad daylight, the Russians made themselves easy targets. The whole operation lasted about 40 minutes before Russia was met with an operational failure. As a result, multiple Russian sources were furious on the matter, with their telegrammers calling out their commanders for what they see as betrayal. It was not a good day for Russia. In fact, it was not a good 2 days. Then headed across into the Ukrainian map today, into the Pokrovsk direction, with the Russian 1437th Motor Rifle Regiment under siege from 3 directions, all as it comes to their ongoing northwest salient. Now, if Ukraine increases the military pressure here, this regiment's position could collapse. Oh, then nearby at Seladova, lightning never strikes the same place twice, and neither do AFU FPV drones. At least that was the expectation for the invaders when Ukrainian quadcopters destroyed a Mr. S self-propelled howitzer, except this time going through the left door instead of the right, and 5 days apart from the previous instance where a Russian tank was destroyed. Then headed further down the map as Russia continues its approach to Constantinople, reaching the main highway from the south, but that happened the day before the last. And most recently, they have since turned west just before the highway at Ulakli, where they may have met increased resistance from the Ukrainian forces. In fact, that was very much the case, because in an early morning attack, we saw a column of destroyed Russian armor, including 1 destroyed tank, 4 destroyed armored fighting vehicles, and 4 to 5 additionally damaged and abandoned armored fighting vehicles. This tightly packed impact zone suggests they run into dense minefields, with instances of vehicles that detonated while attempting to maneuver around wreckages. And with up to 10 armored vehicles lost, for those Russian forces. It's one of the biggest Russian armored columns in 2025 for this region, certainly at least for February. Although, having said that, it does fall short by a wide margin to the 300 odd pieces of armor that Russia was once able to devote to locations like the old Avdiivka offensive. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to put up a defense in this area that Russia would very much like to close the gap on, but it won't happen without a fight. Then headed back up the map briefly to Toretsk, with a great deal of ongoing information suggesting that the Russian military command redeployed additional forces to the Toretsk direction, but not a great deal to date seems to have materialized from this, unless they're waiting to pounce in an upcoming operation. But with elements of urban warfare involved, it's not the fastest of targets to achieve. Now, in the meanwhile, something of the opposite was true, as Special Operations Forces units penetrated the northwest of the embattled town and reached to less than 500 meters from the ATB market. And then in parallel, with another Ukrainian attack by the 22nd Motorized Infantry Battalion towards southeast of Leonidivka in the New York direction. Then taking a look around on the wider map today, as the Ukrainian Navy's Vampire system is showcasing its prowess, intercepting Russian Garan 2 kamikaze drones with AP/KWS laser-guided missiles. This footage highlights a cost-effective, precision-driven defense solution, as the AP/KWS missiles, known for their accuracy and affordability, have become a staple for Ukraine's air defense forces, and truly at a fraction of the cost of other air defense methods. They've even been known to take down Russian cruise missiles. Then, somewhere else on the entire map, Ukraine's army has implemented a ranking system for their drone operator units. And although it certainly encourages competition among units, it was only just recently implemented by the Ministry of Digital Transformation under President Zelensky's directive to allow for precise measurement of drone strikes on enemy forces and help in defense planning. Seen here in this graphic are the top 11 ranked, with the laser group from the National Guard of Ukraine going neck and neck against the 414th Separate Brigade of Strike Systems, with the winner going to the laser group. And also note, these are results for the month of January alone, meaning that if you count it all up, the top ranked 11 account for over 70,000 successful drone strikes across all manner of military targets. And when accounting for all the other unseen drone units further down below on the ranking listing, Ukraine's collective drone successes almost reached 100,000 for the month, which is somewhat consistent with Ukraine's ability to produce slightly over 200,000 drones per month, meaning for every 2 drones, it's approximately 1 successful hit. It's no wonder Russian telegrammers are saying that the AFU is dominating in the field with FPVs. Then also in the east, a heavy lift drone of the AFU drops a water bottle attached to a TM-62 anti-tank landmine onto an invader position. The inclusion of the water bottle is used as a stabilizer and is usually partially filled to act as a counterweight, ensuring the mine lands in an optimal position for detonation upon impact. And of course, anti-tank landmines were never originally designed to be dropped from the air. As such, these days, with the AFU having so many of them in stockpiles, the AFU drone operators are really in the business of bottle recycling now. Just as impressive here is the multi-munition drop heads-up display setup we can see, with simple but effective 2D graphics akin to an old video game that displays the equipped armament, in this case 4 droppable munitions, 3 already used up, providing a simple yet informative view. Then headed across to a little bit of news for today, as Russia and the US are set to meet in Saudi Arabia tomorrow, February 18, aiming to discuss a potential peace deal for Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and a presidential aide are leading the Kremlin's delegation. The US side for this event includes Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Essentially, this is likely to be a meeting before another meeting, before a potential further meeting, meaning that for tomorrow, the US and Russia are firstly laying the diplomatic groundwork, followed by a later Trump-Putin meeting, followed by a less than 50% chance of a negotiated settlement. Because take for example Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the matter, stating that the coming days will show whether Putin is ready for peace. So whatever peace negotiation conditions will look like, Ukraine will be gunning for security guarantees, that is for certain. As Russia has broken every treaty, ceasefire, friendship agreement, memorandum, and the rest that has ever been brokered between the two nations. And then in some more news, and on that topic, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has made a significant announcement stating that he's willing to send British peacekeeping troops to Ukraine once a peace deal is in place. This move aims to support a lasting peace in Ukraine and deter Russian President Vladimir Putin from further aggression. Starmer emphasized that deploying British troops is not a decision he's taken lightly, acknowledging the risks involved. However, he believes it's essential for the UK to contribute to security guarantees in Ukraine, even if it means putting British servicemen on the ground. Then, in a similar sentiment, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz emphasized the importance of Ukraine having a strong military to ensure its safety and security in the event of a peace agreement. He also went as far as to state that any peace deal that involves a demilitarized Ukraine is not an option, and instead that the country needs a robust military to defend against potential future attacks. Putin has previously pushed for a shrinking of Ukraine's military as part of any negotiated peace settlement, which is concerning that he would want that, suspicious to say the least. Because it suggests he wants the opportunity to invade Ukraine for a third time. And for Putin, maybe third time's the charm, and seventh brokered agreement not adhered to is something of a charm as well. Then headed across to a Russian hardware news update segment. So, firstly, you may remember the TOS-1A multiple rocket launcher designed to fire thermobaric rockets, where Russia had about 50 of these. However, of those 50, they had a very particular flaw in their design. They only had a maximum firing range of about 6 kilometers or 3.7 miles, making them one of the original whipping boys for early first-generation frontline Ukrainian FPV drones. As of now, they're all but destroyed. However, step aside TOS-1A, if you can, because enter the TOS-2. And with now, the first ever recorded loss of the TOS-2 in Donetsk, just over a day ago. Now, unfortunately, going back into the history, Russia was only ever able to produce 3 or 4 of the older TOS-1As on a per annum basis. And now, as for the TOS-2s that commenced production in just the last few years, is expected to fare no better. Now, also, technically speaking, the range of the fired rockets from this new TOS-2 platform has jumped up from 6 kilometers as per the old platform to 10 kilometers. But having said that, that has almost nothing to do with the platform itself. It's rather the extended range TBS M3 rockets that have given this new version that extra 4 kilometer boost over the previous generation. This is not enough for battlefield survivability against latest gen Ukrainian drones. What's even worse for this platform is that how they've allowed the old TOS-1A 220mm rockets to be used, giving them, of course, only the 6 kilometer range. And I've got to tell you, I'm sure that's all they're getting. Case in point, this one here, destroyed at the following coordinates. So there it is, popped up on the map. And if we zoom right in and pull out the ruler, we will see the destruction of the TOS-2, the location, which is about 5.5 kilometers from the front line, just shy of the max operational range for the older rocket munitions previously only afforded to the TOS-1A platform. Meaning that this $3+ million unit is just as vulnerable and useless as previous gens. Well done, Russia. Then headed off to a few funnies to round off the day, with more funnies than I can poke a stick at. So running through a quick few funnies now. As firstly, we saw Russia's latest, the cannon from a BMP-2 rigged up to an old field artillery gun. And it's almost like a short-range anti-tank weapon from World War II, only with a much smaller 30mm cannon. We've seen BMP-2s without guns, and now we see the guns without the BMP-2s. Then to another quick funny. As seen here, the Moscow boys requested a quad bike, but received a donkey instead. At least they now have a new friend. But that's not all, because lastly, and in a similar style, it's not just more donkeys, but more horses too. In this case, some Russian units have begun using horses to transport supplies, so it really seems this is shaping up to be more than just a few isolated cases. This is devastatingly embarrassing for a 21st century army, often claiming that there are no Western analogues to what they have. And I guess we can't deny that here. So again, well done, Russia. Well done. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. I really wanted to rip into Russia about the donkeys and the horses a bit more just then, but ran out of time today. But thanks again for watching, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.